Alright, y'all, today we have the 8th installment of the 3 for 30 series. In today's episode, we are going to be focusing in on our first bubble team that will be making it onto the YouTube channel. And with that, today's episode will be on the 25 and 47 Washington Wizards. With this being the 8th episode of the series, that does technically mean that we are over 25% done with the series and getting each and every team out onto my channel. If you're new to the series, the 3 for 30 series is all about giving me an opportunity to spew some points of mine that I have for each and every team as we head into this NBA offseason. And so to get right into it, the first point up on the board today is the reuniting of John Wall and Bradley Beal. Now, as we all know, this was a up-and-coming duo just a few years ago that everyone had a lot of excitement for. There was a lot of worrying around the league about what this duo could be doing to your team years down the road. Now that we've hit that point years down the road, we now know that John Wall unfortunately suffered a lot of setbacks, and meanwhile Bradley Beal has been trying to do a one-man show out in Washington for the past couple of years, which has not exactly worked. But now that John Wall has had this extra time and the pandemic and all this isolation to get healthy and get ready, the two of them are finally coming back together for this next season whenever it starts. We'll be ready for them. I am personally very excited for them to come back. I think John Wall still has plenty left in the tank. Bradley Beal is just hitting his prime. I think they're still going to be a very deadly duo, especially now that they have a really good supporting cast around them. Are they going to be ready for contention yet? Definitely not, but they're going to be a fun, exciting team to watch in this upcoming year. Now, digging into John Wall's history with the Washington Wizards over the recent years, we last saw him play an official NBA game on December 26, 2018. It was just a normal injury for him, but then we later find out that he ruptured his Achilles in his own home somehow. Still have never quite got the explanation for what exactly happened there, but we've taken it for granted and moved on. But if we do look at the last full healthy season that he played, which was the year before that, from the 2016-2017 year, you'll see that Wall actually averaged 23 points per game, almost 11 assists per game, 4 rebounds per game, 2 steals per game, all that on 45, 33, 80 shooting splits. And those are great numbers for your starting point guard to have. John Wall was an electric player. He was one of the fastest guys in the league, if not the fastest, and he could push the ball, get it to his teammates. I mean, I remember countless times of him running the pick and roll with the Polish hammer Marcin Gortat rolling to the rim. He was able to hook up with him a bunch. And again, I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with these new weapons and new and improved Bradley Beal. Overall, I'm just really excited. And if we also look at his most recent playoff games, we'll see that in 2018, he got bounced in the first round by the Toronto Raptors in 6 games, albeit, but he did put up very impressive numbers. He averaged 26 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game, 11.5 assists per game, 2.3 steals per game, 1.3 blocks per game, and all of that on 44, 19, 85 shooting splits, which, I mean, it obviously is a small sample size, only 6 games, but playoff intensity, if he could stretch that out, I mean, those were MVP-esque numbers that if he puts that up in a regular season, he probably won't. His first season back from injury, with him being a bit older and definitely not going to be as athletic and powerful as he once was. But again, I mean, he's still capable of putting up these great numbers year in, year out. And we've gotten plenty of teaser tapes from John Wall over the past couple of years, especially recently. We've been seeing him getting into the gym with the Washington Wizards staff and crew, and he's been looking every bit of the John Wall that he once was. And again, I just have so much excitement for him to finally come back. It's been such a long wait. The East needs some more talent. We've seen some not so great playoff teams reach and come in at the 7th and 8th spots. Even the 6th spot's not too great. But it'll be nice to have the Wizards back in somewhat of contention for this first year and hopefully contention down the line. And as for Bradley Beal over these recent years, we saw him have a huge increase, a huge jump from year 7 to year 8, where he increased his points per game by 5, which is incredible. Not enough to necessarily garner a most improved player or anything of that sort, but it's definitely something that's noticeable. And although it was due to the fact that he was pretty much the only real scoring option and scoring threat on this Wizards team, it's still very impressive to put up 30 points a game and on some pretty efficient shooting numbers. And then he also has now been left this season with a chip on his shoulder due to the fact that he was snubbed not only from the All NBA team, but he wasn't even worthy enough in the eyes of voters to make the All Star game this year. And an East that, like I mentioned, is not exactly the most stacked. I know Bradley Beal had plenty of reason to go to Twitter and give his take on both of these news sources. The one with the All-Star Game snub.
I hope the world can see now what's really going on out here, because it's getting ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. Yes, man. This is ridiculous, man. Ridiculous.
And then the other one with the All-NBA team snub. Now moving on to the second point I got on the board, that is to keep Davis Bertans this offseason. Now there's a lot of speculation going on right now about just how much Davis Bertans is going to cost, as he is a pretty rare breed. Not really for today's NBA, I mean even for today's NBA he's still pretty rare. To have someone at 6'10" who can shoot like he does and with such a high release, and also be able to hold his own on the defensive end to the point that he can't just be attacked every single possession, it's a talent that a lot of teams are looking forward to have. I know there's been a ton of rumors already to this point in this season. Well, I guess it's not really off season. We're in the finals right now, but I digress. There's plenty of talks going on right now about potential suitors for Davis Bertans. There's a lot of teams that want to have him, and if I'm the Wizards, I'm definitely gonna push to keep him. I don't want to say at whatever cost it takes, because you definitely don't want to be dropping well over 20 million for someone who's just going to be a shooting threat mainly. But I've seen numbers as low as 10 million to numbers as high as like 20, the low 20s million in the millions to keep Davis Bertans. And the Wizards do have the play in their hand that Bertans was, he came up in Washington. This is the place where he really exploded onto the scene. I know he spent a few years in San Antonio where he didn't exactly get the playing time to show off his talents. So again, Washington does have that play in hand, that this was the place where Bertans got his opportunity that could lead to him maybe wanting to stay there more than leaving. But to get into some numbers for Bertans, he averaged 15 points per game on 43, 42, 85 shooting splits. And he averaged 8.7 three-point attempts per game, which puts him at 7th in the NBA. And to be able to maintain that high of a volume and still shoot over 40% from three, like I said, it's a special gift for him. He is somewhat of a unicorn in today's NBA. To be that tall and be a sniper like he is, he definitely earned the nickname the Latvian Laser over this past year. Having him back on the court with a healthy John Wall, a healthy Bradley Beal, and some other role players will be great. I mean, like I've talked about before, John Wall was always a great assist man. He averaged in the double digits for assists per game 3 years prior to his injury. And again, just to have a target on the court that can draw the defense to him, like Bertans, both Wall and Beal are great playmakers who can find him if he gets open. And again, it's the same way vice versa. Bertans will be opening up space for both Wall and Beal. So moving on to the third point on the board is the young core that the Wizards currently have. Now, to start this off with a very interesting factoid about their 9th overall pick in the upcoming draft, there's actually a way that they could have had the 3rd overall pick had they had the rules around this bubble been a bit more in their favor. And that's because the Wizards went into the bubble ahead of the Charlotte Hornets, who currently hold that 3rd overall pick. But because of the 8 reseeding games that the Wizards played, they actually ended up losing enough that they fell behind the Hornets in the final standings. But those 8 seeding games did not count towards the draft lottery, and in turn, they are now picking 9th, where they could have been picking 3rd had the rules been a bit different, which is very unfortunate for Wizards fans because they definitely could have used that boost in young talent. But with the young guys that they do have, I wanted to look at the last 10 games of the season that they played together. The three guys I'm talking about are Troy Brown, Rui Hachimura, and Thomas Bryant. Starting with my favorite of the three is Thomas Bryant, who has held down the starting center job for the past year or so for the Wizards. He came over from the Lakers a few years ago, but in these last 10 games, he averaged 16 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 1.6 blocks per game, and 1.2 steals per game on 53, 41, 77 shooting split. Now, Brian is only 22 years old, so he still has plenty of time to progress and get even better from this point. But even looking at these numbers, like I said, over the last 10 games of the season that he played, he is slowly and very efficiently morphing into a modern day small ball 5 for today's NBA. He's only 6'10", and he's very athletic, and his ability to knock down the three, like I said, he shot 41% over these last 10 games and even had a mid to high 30s shooting percentage from three over the entire regular season. So all that put together, I think Thomas Bryant is going to be primed for a breakout year. If it's not next year, it'll definitely be the year after. And then moving on to the 20-year-old Troy Brown, who was the starting small forward towards the end of the season with all the injuries they're having with the Wizards. But next season, depending on whether they keep Davis Bertans or not, he will either see himself maintaining that starting role or moving to more of a bench scoring role. But again, over these past 10 games, he averaged almost 14 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 3.8 assists per game, all that on 37, 35, 90 shooting splits. And my favorite thing about Troy Brown is that he, again, is already producing as a good scorer and can definitely be a good bench scoring threat, but he's also started to add in some playmaking to his game, as you can see from the 3.8 assists per game that he was averaging at the end of the season. And again, if he can come off the bench and be that go-to guy who can be the initiator, think of like a Karis LeVert type role where he comes off the bench and immediately comes in to be the number one. He can handle the ball, he can shoot, he can pass, all that good stuff. I'm excited for Troy Brown as well. And then last of the bunch is the most recent draft pick, Rui Hachimura, who finished up his rookie season. His numbers weren't really anything too crazy. He was averaging double digits in points and was getting a good amount of rebounds, but Hachimura came into the league and we all knew he was going to be a bit more of a project, but he seems to be very locked in and great on the defensive end, which is something that the Wizards are going to need with guys like Bradley Beal, and if they keep him, Davis Bertans, who, again, they're fine defenders, but they're not exactly the most solid. So having a big, agile wing like Rui Hachimura, if he can develop defensively into a big stopper, that will only help him. It'll be, in fact, great for the Wizards if he can do that. Now, even though I definitely think the Wizards can get back, not necessarily into contention next season, but I think they could plant themselves again as one of the stronger bases in the Eastern Conference currently. But if they do take the route where they don't get off to a great start, and maybe by the All-Star break trade deadline time of the year, if they aren't doing so hot, definitely look out for Bradley Beal as a potential trade candidate. One path I can see this team going down that I wouldn't necessarily be mad about is, like I said, if they get off to a rough start, if they trade away Bradley Beal for some other young pieces or other draft picks, then maybe we see them look for a longer game type approach where they keep John Wall just because he's not really tradable with his contract, but they keep him, they let him be the floor general, they let him be the veteran of the team, the leader. As he gets older, he can still be a good assist man. I mean, we see Rajon Rondo for the Lakers playing that veteran, get guys open, play initiator type role. I could see the same thing for John Wall down the line, maybe like 5 years from now. But again, we're going to see all the guys I just talked about, Troy Brown, Thomas Bryant, Rui Hachimura, they'll all be older too and hopefully progress and hitting their prime at that point. And then they can use Bradley Beal to get some other assets or even get another, potential star type player who will be more in line with this timeline if they happen to go down that path. Again, this could also just open up more free agency money down the line. If they're not ready to contend now, maybe they trade Beal, and then, like I said, 5 years from now, they then have the money without Beal, and John Wall may be on a friendlier contract that they can then go out and make a big splash or two in free agency. All in all, whichever path the Wizards choose, I think they're in a good spot. And as I've said multiple times in this video, I'm going to say it one more time. I am very excited for this Wizards team in this upcoming season. And with that, that'll do it for the Wizards 3 for 30 episode. Again, hit the description, go find my Twitter link, follow me on there. If you're not going to do that, maybe think about commenting, liking, dropping a big subscribe down below. And as always, most importantly, thank you for watching. I'm excited to see what the Heat can do. If they can even up the series, we got a good one on our hands. And in the words of Dom 2K, this may just be a certified hood classic of a series.